Welcome to America's Top Rebbetzins. May Hashem watch over all the Jewish people, bring all the hostages back today, and give enormous strength to all the IDF soldiers, including Eliezer Raphael Leib ben Nimuna, Eliyahu Eliezer ben Leah Mirel, Eliyahu Shlomo ben Hanasara, and Eliyahu Tzur ben Chaya Shendel. Please click on the subscribe button to subscribe to us on the America's Top Rebbetzins YouTube page, and click follow to follow us on your podcasting app so that you are the first to know when an inspiring new episode is posted. My name is Vera Kessler. I am a certified life coach. I specialize in transformational life coaching and accountability coaching. And my mission is to help Jewish women get out of their chaos and step into the life that they want to lead, into the highest version of themselves. So if that sounds good to you, you can schedule a free discovery call with me through my website. The link to my website is in the show notes below. So today, I'm very happy to welcome to our show Dr. Marnee Firestone. Dr. Marnee is a licensed psychologist who provides individual therapy, family and parenting therapy, and conducts a variety of evaluations, including neuropsychological evaluations from her office in Boca Raton, Florida. She specializes in clinical psychology, pediatric neuropsychology, and with over 20 years of professional experience, Dr. Marnee's specific techniques and skills, along with her medical knowledge, are used for effective assessment and treatment of patients with psychological and/or physiological and medical conditions from a behavioral, cognitive, or psychoanalytic framework. Thank you so much, Dr. Marnee, for being here with us today. Please tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Hi, everyone. I am so glad I am here. I'm Dr. Marnee Firestone, and yes, I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I live in Boca Raton, Florida. I have been in this space for over 25 years, and I do have a split practice between evaluations and therapy of all kinds. So I specialize in helping families, especially teens and parents, manage anxiety, communication struggles, and emotional regulation. I also co-created a program called Break the Anxiety Cycle with Tamar Oppenheimer, who is a G3. She's down in Miami Beach. And this program teaches parents exactly how to support anxious teens at home in a way that's clear and doable and actually works. Yes, and I'm a mom myself, so I get it, how much juggling parents can do, and especially when emotions are running high.
Yeah, it's really, really hard when you have kids, especially tweens and teens who are in such an anxious phase. Maybe they're about to go into high school, transitioning from middle school to high school, or even in
Totally.
high school, the PSATs, the ACTs, the tests, even the midterms and finals in college, the whole thing.
We could have a whole other podcast about that.
I'm telling you,
I'm
I'm
happy
telling
to.
you. I'm
Yes,
telling you. But today we're going to talk about attachment styles in relationships, specifically in marriage and with kids. So
yes.
I know there are a few different types of attachment styles. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, can you please explain to us what an attachment style is and also talk about the main types of attachment styles and what they look like?
Absolutely. It is such a fundamental topic, and I'm really glad that we're starting here. And because once we are on the same page and we understand our own attachment styles, we could see it how we react to those we're in relationships with, especially when we are feeling stressed or emotionally charged. And that happens.
Yes.
Okay, so let's start with some of the basics. An attachment style is the emotional blueprint that we form in childhood that shapes how we connect with others, how we give and receive love, how we handle conflict, and how safe we feel being emotionally close to someone. It is not something we consciously choose, but it forms in our earliest relationships and usually with our caregivers. Hold on right here, though. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. I am not into mother blaming or shaming. It's really about who am I? How have I grown? And what choices do I have to make to change or continue patterns that are working for me or abandon those that don't? So, again, it's not something that we choose when we're children, it's what we choose to work with as we grow. So, our caregivers, if they were consistent and nurturing and emotionally available, we are likely, not guaranteed, but likely to develop a secure attachment. If they were inconsistent and maybe emotionally distant or unpredictable, we may develop an insecure attachment style as a way to hope. And I say may because there are individual differences, there are other influences, there are circumstances that can impact all of these things, our temperament. So it's not just a 1-to-1 ratio. There is kind of a mix of all of this, which comes into who we are as our being. if that makes sense. So,
Yes.
okay, so there really are 4 main attachment styles, and let's walk through each one of them, and we'll talk about how they look in real life, especially in marriage and parenting. Okay.
Great.
So the first one is secure attachment. This is considered the most balanced and flexible style. People with secure attachment are typically comfortable with intimacy and independence. They trust that others will be there for them when they need them, and they can express their needs without fear or guilt. So in a marriage, they're able to stay connected to their partner during difficult times rather than shutting down or escalating. And as a parent, they're able to stay calm, consistent, and emotionally available, especially during those hard moments.
That's very, very important, especially when the child is going through something. You don't want to collapse along with your child. You want to be strong for them.
Yes. Even if you're not, we'll call that fake it till you make it. We're going to hold our stuff in to give their space for them to be who they are.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. The anxious attachment style. So this style forms typically when a child, even us as adults, when we think back, experience inconsistent caregiving. Sometimes their needs are met, and sometimes they're dismissed or missed altogether. The unpredictability of this type of experience can lead to a deep fear of abandonment. So in a marriage, an anxiously attached partner often seeks reassurance. They want to know, do you still love me? They worry about being rejected. If their partner needs space, they take things very personally, and they feel overly responsible for keeping everything going. In a parent, or as a parent with this type of attachment style, those parents often micromanage everything and feel the need to rescue because they can't tolerate some discomfort. They feel panicked when the child is struggling because the child's distress feels like personal failure.
Yes.
Let me just say that again. So when a parent is anxiously attached and anxious in their own right, and they see their child having a hard time, they feel the distress so personally and they take it as failure. So they over identify, especially with teens, emotions that they're having, and they have a hard time setting boundaries. So
Yes.
that's that one. Now we move on to the next, called avoidant attachment.
Mm-hmm.
This develops when in childhood the emotional needs were met, ignored, they were discouraged, they were not really engaged in a way that was helpful or healthy. And these kids learn, if I show emotion, I might be met with rejection or nothing at all. So they shut down, right? So their needs are not met. And as adults, avoidant attached people really value independence to an extreme. And they struggle to connect emotionally, and they pull away in conflict or stress because they can't handle it. Because if they were to engage, they'd either be rejected or ignored. Okay, so in a marriage, avoidant attachment might look like withdrawing or going silent during arguments. Okay, feeling overwhelmed if their partner actually shares emotional needs and pulls back and says, I need space. Now, even in a healthy relationship, we need some space, but the patterns we're talking about, we're not talking about one off, I need a moment, because that's healthy. It's about when the pattern arises when their partner's having a hard time, their answer is to pull away or repel like magnets. Okay, so as a parent, let's think about that. They may dismiss their child's emotions without realizing it. They may say, you're fine, just stop crying, tough it up. So there are times when we need to give our kids some of that tough love, but these are about long-term patterns. This is about patterns, not one-offs. So this type of parent might have a hard time tolerating emotional intensity and can't comfort their child when they really need it on a consistent basis. These are patterns rather than, again, one-offs. The disorganized, so now we're at our fourth, is really the most complex. And it usually develops as a result of trauma, especially if the caregiver was both the source of love and fear. The child really doesn't know what to expect, so they learn to both seek closeness and protect themselves. So in adults, that often shows like an intense fear of abandonment and a fear of intimacy, for sure. Rapid shifting of behavior, feeling very clingy and then pushing away, and very high emotional reactivity and difficulty self-soothing. So in the marriage, it may look like, don't leave me. Next is, I can't do this, I need space. So it's that very chaotic kind of experience.
Push and pull, one direction and then the other direction.
Yeah, and quickly in a way that it feels disorganized, right? So there is confusion and mistrust and chaos in that relationship because the partner is not sure what to do. As a parent, and I've seen this before, if they've had a disorganized attachment style, they become so triggered by their child's emotion, they oscillate between overreacting and shutting down. And they struggle with consistency, which leaves the child very unsure of what to expect. So it's really that chaotic energy between the people that is it's really can be felt. So, okay, so why does this all matter? Okay, so these attachment styles are really powerful.
Yes.
And they affect how we love, how we argue, how we comfort, and how we set boundaries. And here's the good news. I know that I'm talking so much about this stuff, but they're not fixed. We are able to be adaptable. The human is so adaptable, which is great. And with insight and support, new patterns of interaction can be made, and people can absolutely move towards a more secure attachment with their own work. And this shift starts when we understand how our own patterns are coming out with self-compassion. Remember I said, I'm not into blaming or shaming. We're going to take a look at ourselves and see what we can do better each and every day to learn new ways to respond and build trust, safety, and emotional connection. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, it's so, but it's so interesting. And I want to make an interesting comment because as you were describing attachment styles, I see also from my past experience from the people around me, children who are born to immigrant parents like Soviet parents or Polish parents or Eastern European parents, they, because of everything that they went through, with World War II and even afterwards, when they came here, it was just survival. It was just going from breath to breath, going from breakfast to lunch. And because of that, a lot of times they showed up in a disorganized way or in an avoidant way. Again, there's no blame. It's so interesting when you speak to me about this because I see parents who grew up in America, in the United States, like I'm not saying nobody has avoidant or disorganized. I'm not saying that, but it's much less prevalent than somebody who's like literally fighting for their survival every single minute. And then you have kids and you're still fighting for survival. And now you're with these kids and it's very difficult to emotionally connect, especially for people, if you were raised by parents who lost everybody in the Holocaust. You don't know what's happening next.
Right. And to speak to that even further, our parents or grandparents, this was their first go around in this universe.
Yes.
So we need to be compassionate and show care and concern for their experience. It really does shape how we move forward. It goes with that saying that, and forgive me if I can't connect to exactly where it is, but the translation goes, when we teach our children, we teach our children's children.
Yes.
Okay. So if that's the case, then we are the children's children of that.
Exactly. That's right.
Right. Yes. And then it's our responsibility, and I really mean responsibility, to self-reflect and then make adjustments where they need to be made in our children when we see what we've brought forward from that history, when we engage in a way that is less than desirable, be forgiving of ourselves and move forward without all that shame and guilt and blame. It doesn't keep us moving forward. It keeps us stuck. But you're right. Those families who have come here or are still struggling in Israel, in Ukraine, in wherever we want, who are in war situations,
Yes.
they're doing the best they can,
Yes, for
as
sure.
are the children.
Exactly, exactly. And so that's where that, and so that brings us to the present because now, like, I love what you said. Like, we're not, it's not fixed. These patterns, if we have a disorganized attachment style or an avoidant detachment style, or even an anxious attachment style, it's not fixed. The more aware we are of what our attachment style is, then we can really, that's the
Yeah.
awareness is key. And then we can move forward and try to work toward a secure attachment style. And so that's what I was going to ask you, maybe if you have a tip. I know it's probably like a whole podcast in itself, but like, how can we move toward a secure attachment style?
So I've been really thinking about that. And what I know, I'm sorry if you hear my dog in the background.
Okay,
It's
it's all
so
good.
annoying. So let's get real about that, right? Because attachment theory isn't actually theory, it's what we do in showing up in our everyday life.
Yes,
It's how we show up that makes the difference, right? So in the marriage or partnership, the attachment style drives how we respond, how
yes,
we feel vulnerable, how we feel stressed, how we even disconnect. So how to move through and towards a more peaceful, more attached, securely attached relationship really has to take some effort. So let's talk about that because I know that one of the things that I wanted to make sure we got to is that partners actually have different patterns or styles and they're fluid sometimes, right? With our
yes,
own growth. Okay.
yes,
So if our attachment styles are different in a marriage, in a relationship, how do we come closer to connection when that happens? That's
right.
one of the things I think about and how it translates into our parenting
Yes,
because there's so much marital discord around how to raise our children.
yes,
So,
for sure.
okay.
Yes,
All right. So, um, can we talk about a few examples that I
yeah,
have? Okay. So, if we're talking about mismatches first, okay, so we have the anxious and the avoidant.
yes,
It's very common mismatch. Okay. So that's that. I'll chase you, I'll withdraw, you'll chase me, if that makes sense.
yes,
So the anxious parents craves the anxious partner, excuse me, craves the closeness and the reassurance. And the avoidant partner needs space and independence. These are all to try and regulate. Okay. So the more the anxious partner reaches out, talk to me, connect with me, what's going on? I need to know. The more avoidant the other partner becomes, they're like, whoa, you're smothering, you're too much,
right.
too much. And that's uncomfortable in a relationship for sure. So the more anxious and panicked one becomes, the more avoidant the other one becomes.
Yes, exactly.
So now that's a cycle that neither partner feels in deep connection,
Yes,
right? So, okay. So they also don't feel safe. They don't feel seen or heard, and they really feel dishonored in their own needs. Both sides.
yeah, of course, definitely.
Okay. So what helps? Like you said before, and I'm 100% a believer in recognition of those patterns,
Yes,
right? Because how can we make any change without seeing what's going on? So taking that moment without blaming each other to really recognize what kind of stuff I am bringing to this experience right now. What is going on? How can I connect with my partner in a way that's good for me and them? Not just me
right,
and not just them, right?
right.
So, learning how to communicate your needs directly and calmly. And the avoidant partner, if they're hopefully open and willing to, practice staying present, emotionally present, even if it feels uncomfortable. So the anxious partner will work on reflection, self-soothing, and building trust before engaging in like such a smothering kind of way. And the other should not just pull away, just sit with some of their own discomfort a little bit. So it's that push and pull to bring closer together.
I love that because that in a way is how they both can go move more closer to the secure attachment style, each in their own way, each from their own starting place.
Yes. So this really isn't about changing who we are fundamentally as people. It's just understanding how we are wired and then
Yes,
making choices to build new connections, to
exactly.
change patterns. So
Exactly to change patterns. Yep.
to change the pattern. So one of the things that I like to rely on happens to be with family systems theory as well. When we think about this, is that one part of a partnership can actually change the partnership. So even if the work isn't willing to be done by the other, we can make the work happen just by changing some of our actions and reactions. It's just going to take longer, but if we change, the system changes.
That makes so much sense. That really, really does. So can we bring it, let's bring it into the practical. Like, can you give an example? First, give an example of what it might look like when you're starting off the anxious and avoidant. Like, what might that scenario look like? And then we'll go into the scenario where they're both really trying to work on not running away or not being too smothering.
So, I mean, that's great. It's a great way of segueing to this piece of it where, and I don't necessarily agree with this idea, but I think a lot of people feel like the woman in a relationship is more anxious. And then
Okay.
I'm not saying that this is just what a lot of research, probably because the research was done mainly on men than over women. We can talk about that another time. And that the man is supposed to be stoic and more, pulls apart. Okay, so the goal is for this partnership, in my opinion, is that if the partner who is anxious can sit a little bit with the discomfort. I don't care if you journal or you need to take a moment and self-reflect out loud, disconnect a little bit with this sitting uncomfortable feeling, just a little bit, put some space and determine what do I really need to talk to my partner about when I'm feeling this anxious, right? Let it simmer down a little bit. That's something you can do when we're feeling anxious, actually, or angry. Any big feeling that would disrupt and not get us to our goals. What are our goals? To feel more connected with our partner, right? So if
Right.
we pull down our that temperature in the relationship, we have a better shot of getting there. And even when we think about it as a parent, not all needs should be met immediately. It's okay that when, let's say we're picking child for 1 second, if they're frustrated that their shoe is not getting tied right, this is with really little ones. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. They can't do it. It's okay to feel a little frustrated. You don't have to go in and rescue. It also didn't mean you didn't teach them well enough. So there is okay to space to feel some discomfort for growth, but not so much so that you're feeling unbelievably anxious and can't engage, right?
Right.
Okay. So the avoidant partner, I can't deal with this. You deal with this, and pulls apart from the partner. And
Right.
then there's this feeling of aloneness, there's overwhelm, there's real shame from one end to the other, like I shouldn't go to my partner, my husband or wife is not understanding. What am I doing here? I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do. And then the other's the one who's more avoidant is I've done all I can do. I cannot carry the weight of this whole family, and they
Right.
pull apart. Does
Right.
does that connect or make sense?
Yeah, it totally does. Because at least when you have an avoidant and an anxious partner, if the avoidant is not doing anything, not participating in the family, not doing activities, not just pulling their weight, then everything, all the burdens are left on the anxious parent. The meals, the cleaning of the house, the driving everywhere, the
Yeah.
PTA meetings, the sports games, like everything is on one parent, and the other one just maybe they go to work or maybe they hide out playing video games or watching TV or scrolling on their
Yeah.
phone, and
Yep.
they're hiding because they're avoiding because they're have an avoidant attachment style. So, I mean, it makes sense, when I'm saying it out loud, it cognitively makes sense. But in real life, when you're living it,
Oh,
it really is, it feels lonely, it feels overwhelming, it feels frustrating to the anxious partner. And then for the avoidant partner, it feels scary. Oh my God, what does she want from me? Oh my God, it's
right. And I
really,
can't do enough. I've done so much. Nothing is
Right?
enough,
Nothing.
right?
Right. Right.
So
Exactly.
even if you have, let's say the mom is the securely attached and the dad is more avoidant, the burden of everything then not only still feels on the mom partner. We're going with more, very traditional or my typical way of experiencing things. It also can make that dad who's avoidant feel even worse about themselves because the wife can do it all.
Right. 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 From
Yeah,
a male ego point of view, it's a real big
correct.
hit to the ego. Yes.
Right. And it's not meant that way.
No,
The
of
person
course.
who is securely attached and who can do all of the juggling, it looks less effortful than it really is. It's just that person, the securely attached person, doesn't take everything so personally. They can manage a lot of the distress. They don't feel it the same way, which then you're right, makes the other feel worse. Not
Right.
on purpose.
No, not on purpose.
That's very hard to fix.
Yes.
Very hard. Because we don't want the securely attached to feel more, oh, if to do this life better, I should become more disorganized.
Right. To better match the other person's
No,
attachment style. No, that's not
no,
what you want.
no. But what we do want is maybe for that, the securely attached primary person in that life to gain a better understanding of what their partner is going through, to give them maybe a little bit more grace when they're feeling that way. That's what they can do, because you can never change somebody else.
No, never. In
You can
anything.
only, in anything, you can only change how you act and react. And if the other partner is not willing to work on it, it's really challenging.
You know what? That's exactly what I was going to ask you. But I know that you said, definitely, and I agree with you. One person changes the dance. But I was actually when you were speaking, I was really thinking about attachment, avoidant attachment and anxious attachment. But now that you're bringing in secure attachment, you have such a good point. Because here's just like a regular securely attached person, not overly needy, not overly clingy, not overly, I'm doing everything myself, just like a regular person showing up in real life, just regular in the day to day. And if that person is married to an avoidant who's trying to run away, or even if they're married to an anxious, like that's really, really hard because what they're seeing is a more of an unhealthy attachment style when they themselves have a healthy attachment style. I feel like it could be very, very jarring for them, you know?
It's very challenging.
Yes.
It's very, very challenging. So if one partner really is that secure attached, they
Yeah.
can offer the stability and the consistency that can help co-regulate the insecure partner. And over time, the problem ends up becoming is that the secure partner feels exhausted in the relationship, and it
Yes.
becomes
It
very
does.
trying on the relationship. It's really challenging. It really is.
It is. And as you say that, I feel like almost the secure person becomes like for lack of a better word, the mommy to the other person with the insecure attachment.
Yes.
Yes.
And these, again, when we step back and say, oh, that's my spouse or that's my ex or whatever, we do the best we can when we choose our partners, however we choose them when we're,
Of
let's say,
course.
younger and not really understanding what this looks like. So,
Yes.
forgiving to ourselves, say, okay, this is who I am. I'm going to do the best I can with where I'm at now and grow each and every day.
Yes.
That's what we can do. But the aha moment is like, oh boy, this is my spouse. And yeah, the more capable I appear, the worse this is. What do? I can't let it all fall apart. I don't want
Right.
it to all fall apart. And my
Right.
kids need me to show up the way I am. And you're
Right.
right. It's really, really challenging in a relationship. So
Yes.
again, the awareness is key. And relationships thrive when both parties are actively working on recognizing patterns and shifting things that aren't working and celebrating those that do.
I totally agree. If somebody out there who's listening and watching is lucky to have their partner also working, I have to tell you, like you've hit gold. It really is because most of the time, from the experience that I've seen, it's only one person who is aware and willing to change. So yes,
Yes, and it's very hard. It's very, very hard.
very yeah. It really, really is. But so now I want to talk about a little bit about parenting because, we talked about different attachment styles in marriage, but like, what if your child has more, let's say, of an anxious attachment and they're very clingy and they're very needy and they don't want to separate, whether they're a younger kid or even a teenager also, and you're a mom, maybe you have like a more avoidance style and you're like, just like go, you know what I mean? What?
I do. So what I find, and I'm sorry, do you mind if I just open the door so I could stop her from barking? So when we talk about parents and parenting children who might have different attachment styles to the parent, that creates a whole sort of stress within the parent-child dynamic and often within the relationship.
Yes.
So let's talk about some common mismatches. Whoops. Okay, so how about the anxious parent and the avoidant child? Okay, so,
Yes.
and this is very, very common. So we have the anxious parent, we'll say the mom for the moment, and then the avoidant, oh my Lord, and the avoidant child. So the anxious parent tends to be over involved, right?
Right.
They have a really hard time tolerating when their child's upset. They may over question, they may rush to fix things. The avoidant child tends to cope by shutting down and pulling back.
Yes.
And they find the parent who is so anxious intrusive, and then they pull back more. So I literally just had this in my office. I was like a couple of weeks ago. The mom is so anxious about everything. The child was coming home from college, right? I mean, we're talking about a kid who's graduating from college or just did, and was bringing some friends home. The mom said, I don't know if they're coming tonight. Are they going to make it? Should I make up the extra bed? I don't know how many friends are coming. Why he's not telling me anything. I was like, okay, so tell me again about your kid. And I did this on purpose. So the child was considered a gifted child, finished college early, and actually is graduating with a master's degree from a top university down here.
Amazing.
Amazing. And I had her tell me about that on purpose. Why? I think he's got this. If he needs to blow up the mattress
He
by
can do
himself,
it.
he clearly can do it, right?
Yes.
But she felt so uncomfortable
Yes.
and anxious about having, is there one friend or two friends coming? That all she must have called, she told me she called the kid and a gazillion times over like that one day driving down. And I was like, this isn't going to bring you closer. Just don't call again. Because she reached out in a panic. I said, just offer the blow up bed when he gets there. Hey, hon, you brought one kid, two kid. It doesn't matter. Here's your the blow up mattress. There's an extra one in the closet. I'm sure you've got it. She was very uncomfortable with that. But what happened? I heard later. She was so proud of herself. She stopped calling. She just offered. So she managed her own anxiety.
Beautiful.
She offered the blow up mattress. And then the kid said, okay, mom, I got it. And there was no big deal. So managing her anxiety actually brought the child closer in how he responded to the mattress offering. It's a simple example, but what we needed to do is have in this work, having the parent take a moment. What is my goal here? How am I interacting? And if my goal is to be closer to my kid, over harassing isn't going to do it. Because if you harass, which is what the child felt,
right,
they're going to pull apart and pull away and repel.
100%, 100%. It's all about like now that you're talking and explaining more deeply, I see that it's in addition. So, okay, so step one is awareness of our attachment style, but step two is managing our own emotions. It's
Yes.
really key.
Yes, because they spill out into other situations.
Exactly. Yes.
So if you're an anxious person, one of the rules, that we try and have teaching the adult, and if not, if the child is the anxious one, we try and teach in our program and in my practice, try and teach the child that we're going to take a pause and not respond to everything we're feeling, because thoughts and feelings are not the same thing, and feelings are not necessarily facts.
Exactly. That's right. Yes.
So if we can practice this better regulation, not rushing in to fix things, giving things a moment, Sometimes it just comes down itself, the stress, which brings the closeness back together. But like
That makes so much sense. Yeah, yeah.
this mom felt rejected because her kid wasn't responding fast enough.
Right. And the kid probably had their own things to do. Maybe they had their own phone calls to make. They were talking to their friends. They were, especially just in graduation season, there's so much going on for them, for the kid.
For the kid, and
Right.
clearly he's capable of blowing up a mattress
Yes.
if he has graduated college early and this was with a master's degree. So there's
Yes.
that disconnect between the reality and the fact and that feeling. So if we can bring things back down to what's the reality? Okay, my kid will learn to tie its shoe. Everybody does. Until then, either I can help or we can use Velcro, but we don't, the anxiousness does not have to ooze out into the experience. And if
You know what
we
I
can
think?
manage that, it'll be better for our kids.
It's 100%. But you know what I think also is, like, especially for women, especially for moms, I think
Mm,
there's some kind of a stereotype or some kind of a notion or idea out there that moms have to do it all and they all have to be perfect. And their kid is a reflection of us. And if the kid does something wrong, well, obviously it's the mom's fault and the moms always get blamed. That's what we think in our mind. And that's why we're
correct.
so helicoptery, so overprotective. So I need to get everything right. And
Yeah.
and it's almost detrimental to the kids because we're robbing them of their own self-efficacy, of their own independence, of
Yes.
their own self-development, by doing everything for them. Then we're left with your kid is going off, maybe they're 22, 23, they finished college, they want to go off in the world, they don't know how to make themselves breakfast. They can't make a doctor's appointment. They can't get dressed on their own. What color should I wear? What shoes should I wear? Which way should I go? What should I do? They can't make a decision in the end, because if they've always had everything done for them, it's detrimental. But
100%. A
yeah, yeah,
hundred percent. And it changes the focus of mom from just being a one rather than being a woman, a wife,
right,
a friend,
right,
or having career. If you're so hyper focused that it has to be perfect,
right.
it will never reach that because people are not perfect.
100%.
It's never happening. So, yeah, I do find that this is very much, I'm glad we're having this conversation as a very much a women's issue because we do have this false sense of perfection.
Yes,
We're not, we're people, right? And ever growing and changing. And with that comes personal responsibility to take a moment of reflection of where am I? What is working for me? Because you're worth it. You are, I am, us as women, we are.
a
And
hundred percent.
the judgment, we need to be kinder to ourselves and to our friends and sisters and mothers and grandmothers, aunties, whoever, because they were all doing the best they could and
I
are
totally
doing. Yeah.
I totally agree. I totally agree. We have time for one last question, but since I love personal anecdotes and stories, I want to ask you if maybe you can please share a story or two about someone you know who is really, really struggling, like really struggling with having a different attachment style than either their husband or their child, and what they particularly did to get past that and to end up having a good relationship, going from struggle to success.
Right. So, um, most often I see this with the anxious parent and the avoidant teen. Okay.
Okay.
Or I can talk about it with the husband and wife. I think we did that a little bit before, but we could kind of do both because I think they blend into each other. We have our anxious parent and the avoidant teen. So the mom having the anxious attachment style, she's trying to be incredibly loving, but she's like she's too much. She's,
Yes.
extra. And
Yes.
the son or daughter may have a different attachment, much more avoidant or even secure. And they just not clicking that way, feeling independent but connected. That's much more secure. The kid's doing great, but the mom can't tolerate some of this growth. And
Yes.
the growth that's expected, even when a child toddles down, falls, looks back, waits for your reaction. Okay, you kind of underreact, which I like. The kid picks him up and goes off. The mom falls apart. We've all seen this.
Yes.
Yeah. And this repeats itself. The goal is to have the mom manage her emotions in this space without it spilling out into the teen. if that
Right.
makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I talk about this with parents, I want them to say things like, I see you're upset. I'm here when you're ready to talk. Not over spilling into their space. So the work is really challenging because the parent feels anxious. They don't
Yeah.
know how to fix it. They want to share it with their spouse. Their spouse may be very busy in their career as well, not really getting themselves engaged in this stuff. They dismiss, because this happens a lot with the husbands and wives. They don't want the girl drama. They don't want to be involved. It doesn't matter to them, which it may not, in the sense that it doesn't matter in their everyday, but they can't give of themselves because it doesn't connect that way. And then the wife feels more alone and then is more
Right.
on top of the kid, and the kid is running even further. And
Yep.
now they're fighting because, why aren't you backing me up? He's being disrespectful or she's being sassy. And there we have our triangle that is
Yes.
really complicated.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, and I see it a lot. And you don't need your spouse to make change. Change can happen with self work. It may take longer, but we can do that work and we can grow as individuals that way. And then that growth will share and shine onto our kids and our partners.
Right, I think so too. And, if anything, you'll be the shining example of the family because you will have done so much work on yourself, you know?
Right. Right. And it's not failure to do work.
No, it's growth. Opposite, it's growth.
Yes. And that is what this is about. I think, what aren't we on this earth to grow and share and shed light and repair? So we have
100%.
to repair ourselves too.
It's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Marnee, for joining us on America's Top Rabbits. And it was really very eye-opening and informative to have you with us. It was a pleasure. And may Hashem watch over all the Jewish people, bring all the hostages back today, and give enormous strength to all the IDF soldiers, including Eliezer Raphael ben Emuna, Eliyahu Eliezer ben Leah Miral, Eliyahu Shlomo ben Chana Sarah, and Eliyahu Tzur ben Chaya Shendel. Thank you so much again.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I loved it. It's wonderful.
My pleasure.